So, welcome to Beyond the Strikes, and I'm delighted to say we're joined by Maraya Miller. Maraya, how are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much for having me on.
You're very welcome. And our first round today is called From the Start. And our first questions we have for you are where did you grow up and how did you get into combat sports?
I grew up in Southern California, and I actually started getting into combat sports by doing judo when I was maybe 7 years old. I was actually at my family dojo. It was my grandfather's dojo. He's a judo black belt, and my mom is a judo black belt. So I was kind of born into it, and then I've been doing it ever since.
That is cool. So, it properly runs in your family then.
Yeah, it's in my blood.
And have you always wanted to get into combat sports, or have there been any other sports that you've been interested in?
It wasn't my initial plan. So I started doing judo, but I was also doing gymnastics. And I was a competitive gymnast. Gymnastics takes a lot of time and effort. So I actually ended up stopped doing judo and I chose gymnastics. And my grandpa was supportive. He said, "Well, I guess you have to go to the Olympics for gymnastics instead." And I was like, "Wow, that's a lot of pressure." But I actually broke my tailbone in eighth grade, and so that was right before high school. I stopped doing gymnastics, and then I needed a new outlet, and I actually joined the wrestling team in high school, and then ever since then, I've been doing martial arts. So
Yeah. And have you found that having that background in gymnastics has helped in MMA?
totally, it helps a lot. Like gymnastics taught me a lot of things, not only just in my body with the physical aspects, but mentally. It made me very tough, and I think that gymnasts would make great fighters because we're very tough and we're dedicated and determined, and you have to deal with fear. So I think that gymnastics translates well into fighting.
Yeah, it's a really interesting comparison actually, and I think in terms of the training, and that kind of the focus that you need in both and the dedication, there's definitely a lot of
Yeah,
parallels.
yeah, there is. There's not a lot of sports that you have to deal with fear, and we're little girls on this beam doing a flip, thinking, if I mess up, I'm gonna really hurt myself, and I have to deal with it. And dealing with that for years, I think kind of lessened the scariness of fighting because I'm already kind of used to crashing and burning.
Joe, it's an interesting point. So one of our questions we had for you was after watching your two pro fights, it really felt like you had this calmness when you're in the cage that you don't always see with fighters, particularly
Yeah.
fighters who have kind of it's like early on in their career. So do you think that's
Yeah.
part of it, and you've kind of got that from it?
Um, Maybe. Yeah, I started competing gymnastics when I was 9, and when you're competing, you're the only one out there and everyone's watching you, and if you fall, you gotta get back up. So, I've been competing for a long time. I competed in gymnastics, wrestling, and diving, in jujitsu, and then I had amateur fights. So, at this point, I've just been competing for a really long time, and I just felt, at home, especially because for Combate, during this weird COVID time, there was no crowd.
Yeah.
So it was very odd because I showed up to the venue, I got my hands wrapped, I warmed up, I walked out. I didn't have to hardly wait at all. There's no crowd to like make me nervous. And I asked my corner, like, I don't feel nervous. Is that weird? And he's like, well, do you feel ready? And I'm like, yeah, I feel super ready. And he's like, and that's fine. That's a good thing. And I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, I really didn't get nervous or anything. I had to slap my face and I was like, this is happening right now.
So how did you find that kind of experience to kind of just go in straight into the cage, no crowd? Like I'm guessing it was in a like almost a felt like a TV studio going in there.
Yeah, it was in a TV studio, a Univision TV studio in Miami, which was cool. Like it was a cool experience. And as a fighter, I felt like it was actually a lot easier because there's no pressure of the crowd and it's quiet. I can hear my corner
Mm.
very clearly. However, you can also hear your other corner. I mean, you can either hear the opponent's coaches and they can hear yours. Um, but it didn't feel like a real fight. Like it felt like we're kind of practicing, you know. It just kind of
Mm.
felt like a exhibition match or something. It didn't have the same energy as my amateur fights. Um, but I feel like that maybe made it easier for me, or maybe made me less nervous. So maybe when I go have my first pro fight with the crowd, maybe I'm actually gonna get nervous this time because it's been so long now.
Oh, we'll have to talk to you after your first fight in front of the big
Yeah,
crowds there. That'll be
yeah, I
really
can't
interesting to
wait.
kind of, yeah, to gauge the differences. And as a fan, it's quite it's quite a unique experience watching the fights and being able to hear the fighters' corners, because you never
Yes,
usually get that experience. So it's
yeah.
very different.
I remember watching UFC, um, kind of right after I quit gymnastics, and it just kind of came on, and I saw some girl fighters, and this was like pretty early on when they had girl fighters, and they all were wearing, like the UFC bikinis when they were weighing in, and I was watching them, and I'm like, damn, those girls are tough. Like that's cool. I like seeing those girls in there, but at that time, I was like, it didn't occur to me that I wanted to do that. I was like, that's crazy. I can't imagine getting in a cage and fighting someone. Like wrestling is one thing, but having someone try to punch you is another, or trying to like submit you and snap your arm, that's another thing. So I remember watching it and thinking like, damn, those girls are badass, but I didn't have the confidence in myself. I couldn't even picture myself in there yet. But with martial arts, since MMA, you have to do different things. It kind of just evolved. Like I started wrestling, then I was like, maybe I want to try some submissions. And then I did jujitsu, and then I was like, maybe I want to do a little boxing. And so it just kind of added on and on and on. And then I was like, maybe I want to hop in the cage. So, well, honestly, uh, what really drives me. Did you hear that, rooster?
Yeah, I did.
There'll be a lot of them right now because the sun's about to rise. Um, but yeah, anyways, what really drives me to do martial arts and um, helps me focus is that I'm a sexual assault survivor. And it actually happened to me right before I joined wrestling. And I found that doing martial arts really helped me feel more empowered, and it helped me focus. You can't think about anything else other than whatever is happening to you at that time. You can't focus on your problems because someone's either punching you or kicking you, and you have to focus. So, going from sport to sport, I just had focus, and then when I wanted to fight, like I just wanted to feel more and more strong, and I felt like the MMA fighter is the strongest, martial artist out there, and I just wanted to be that. So having a fight, every fight you have to like train really hard, and you come out as a stronger person. So that's what I really like about fighting.
Yeah, and I mean, just to hearing you talk is kind of really inspirational, and it kind of you can see where you're getting that kind of core strength from. And in terms of, I guess, building on from that, so outside the cage, is it something you passionately do a lot of work on, and like supporting other people who've been through a similar thing to you?
Yes. So I don't really like social media. It kind of makes me feel like shit, and I'm not really that social. But I told myself, if someday I have a lot of followers, or someday I'm going to be on TV, I'm going to use that platform to, use my voice to speak about mental health
Hmm.
and sexual abuse and childhood trauma and all of that stuff, because it's a really uncomfortable conversation. And growing up, when I was dealing with it, there was like many years, and I still struggle, but there are many years when I just didn't know what the fuck was going on in my head, and I couldn't talk to anybody about it because it was a very strange and uncomfortable topic, and I would kind of look stuff up and maybe find some random forums that I could get help on. So when I did find certain strong people that I looked up to, some inspirational role models, when they would speak about their own struggles, I kind of, fell in love with that person. I was like, man, thank you for speaking your truth. You make me feel less of a mess
Mhm.
when I can see that you're out there fighting and competing, or you have a successful job and you're being honest about how you feel. That made me feel so much better. And I really commend those people. So I took that as inspiration to do the same. And I I tried to just to be real on Instagram and social media about my struggle, but also put out a lot of positivity. I don't want to only put out negativity, but I don't want to be toxically positive either. So I try to balance it with both. Be positive and be a light, but also be real and make people feel like they can relate to me. I've been working on my mental health for several years, really. Like I was diagnosed with PTSD when I was a junior in high school, and that's kind of when I was even aware of mental health. But the pandemic is what really stopped me in my tracks and like I mean the world stopped and was like, "Hey, you got to deal with the stuff in your head because there's nothing else going on. You're locked down in your house and you either go crazy or you deal with it." And I feel like the whole world was in a similar situation. The world is in turmoil and everyone's stressed, and I was like, hey, here's a chance to go on there and speak, and everyone's on Instagram because there's nothing to do. And so I just started speaking my truth, and I think a lot of people started doing that, and I think that's really good. I think a lot of people's mental health really took a toll during the lockdown, so a lot of like therapy and online services became a lot more popular, which I think is really great. So yeah, I think the stigma is getting a little bit less. There still definitely is, but I think since the pandemic, people are starting to talk about it because everyone's feeling it.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think is feeling it, and I think it will probably be the biggest thing that comes out long term from everything we've been through over the last few years is going to
Yeah,
be the kind of challenges with people's mental health. So I think you're absolutely right, and what you're doing is fantastic. I think it's
thanks.
absolutely brilliant. We had a question, so like fighter nicknames is always something we're really interested in as a team, and you've definitely got one of the more unique fighter nicknames we've heard. So can you just tell the viewers what your fighter nickname is and just a little bit of how you came to get that?
Yeah. So my fighter nickname is Samuraiya. My first name is Maraya, so it's a little play on my name, but I'm half Japanese, so it fits. Remember, I told you I come from a judo background, so martial arts is in my blood, and um, it kind of just came about. I was in Vegas for a jiu-jitsu tournament with my best friend, and she always used to do my hair. I was saying she always does my hair. She used to do my hair for all my tournaments. She would braid it, and she braided it up into this big bun, and it was like a samurai bun. And I was like, I look like a samurai, samurai, Samuraiya. And then we both like looked at each other, and we're like, Maraya. And we're like, oh my God, that's gotta be my name. And I just kind of like put the picture out, but I put the name, and it just stuck. Everyone was like, that's so cool. And so, yeah, it ended up being my name, which I really like it. I wanted to have something, so Japanesey. And it, I don't know, it's unique. Um, and it kind of inspires me. Sometimes I'm lazy and I'm like, come on, samurai, get up, be disciplined, be dedicated, and yeah, I love it.
Yeah, we love it too, and I think when the announcer like really goes for it and like rings your
Yeah,
whole name off, it like it proper pops, doesn't it? As you can imagine, when
yeah,
with the crowds are there, it's like it's a really good one to have.
yeah, yeah. It sounds really cool when they announce it.
Yeah. And do you have any superstitions that you do before a fight?
um, not really. I don't know if I would call it superstitions. Mm, no, not really. No superstitions. I don't want to like think I can jinx myself, the cosmos or anything, but I definitely have routine. I like to meditate. I like to come up with I'll have like both of my fights. I had some sort of mantra that I would just repeat to myself anytime I had time to myself. Because mind you, though, both fights were in COVID time, so I was stuck in my hotel room for 5 days. I wasn't like going out in Miami or anything before, so I was just sitting in the room getting ready for my battle. So I was just sitting there like repeating my mantra, visualizing, and yeah, that's basically it. But no
Yeah, and
superstitions.
was it? It was. I think Thug Rose had something similar, didn't she? I think she had some mantra that she was like
Oh,
consistently
I'm the
saying
best.
over and
I'm the
over
best.
again.
Yeah.
So I think it
Yeah.
is.
That actually did inspire me when she was just saying, I'm the best, I'm the best. And I'm like, dang, that's really cool. Um, and I had something similar. And I was just repeating it to myself all week. I was repeating it to myself because I knew coming up there's gonna be some tough times that I was gonna have to think about it. And I didn't want to think, what's my mantra?
Mhm.
So during all week I was doing it, and then during my weight cut when it started to get hard, I was like, okay, like now's the time to start chanting your mantra. I looked very calm and I just kept telling myself like I'm the best. I've got this. I'm a fighter. I'm a champion. I'm gonna come out victorious no matter what. And uh yeah, I think it really helped me calm my nerves, centered me, focused me. So I think I'm
Yeah,
gonna
and I mean,
continue
as we
doing
said,
that.
like it really comes across in the cage, that kind of calmness. It's yeah, for someone who's like second pro fight, one and two pro fights, both of the ones we watched. It's like the calmness is incredible.
Thank you.
Um,
I felt weirdly calm actually. Like even in the middle of the fight when I went back to the stool, I just remember being like blank faced, like, mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
yeah.
okay, got it. I was like a zombie. And then I watched the fight, and you can see my face like get hit, and I'm just like I was like, whoa, that's kind of creepy.
So next round is called the hypothetical round, and we have a
Okay.
really random question for you. So,
All right.
the question is, if you could be any living person for a day, who would you choose, and what would you spend the day doing?
Uh, that is a really good question. The first answer that came to my mind is be my grandpa and just go to his judo dojo and see my mom as a younger girl. And I would have given her the opportunity to do judo because, believe it or not, back in the day, my mom really wanted to do judo and my grandfather didn't want her to do it because she was a girl. And that really frustrated her. She just wanted to like make her dad proud and do it like he did, but he didn't want her to because he was old fashioned. And he did end it later when she was like 30. So it was kind of past her age to compete and stuff. So that was my first initial thought. If I was able to be a person and understand their experiences, it would be interesting to be my grandfather because he passed away right before I started doing wrestling. So he didn't really get to see me go back into martial arts and become this fighter. So I really wish that he was here to see it because by the time I was born, he was all for me doing judo. And so when I chose gymnastics, he's like, well, I guess you have to go to the Olympics for gymnastics. and but later on I chose martial arts. So I always tell myself I believe he would be very proud of me. But I also wish that I could have spoken to him and asked him lots of questions,
Mhm.
especially about martial arts and running a gym, because it's my goal to open up my own school someday and be like my grandfather and be on the mat until I pass away. So it would be really interesting to speak to him about different things like that. And also, he was actually put into the internment camps during World War II.
Wow.
So it would be very interesting to understand, how that was and how he endured. And, when they got out of the camps, they had nothing. They didn't they didn't give them their house back. They didn't give them their possessions back. They didn't pay them while they were in camp. So they had to really start over. So that struggle is inspiring to me. And when I was a kid, I didn't really understand, so I didn't ask him about it. But it would be cool to be able to understand and experience his experiences.
Yeah, I mean, he sounds like an incredible person who's obviously had a massive influence on your life. So I'm sure he's absolutely proud of you.
Thanks.
And so next round we have, so this is the final round, and
Okay.
it's called quick fire round. So we're going to give you two options, and we just want you to say the first option that comes to mind once we've said it. Okay, you ready?
Okay. Yes.
So striking or grappling?
Grappling.
Robots or dinosaurs?
Dinosaurs.
Fighting for $1 million or fighting for the title?
Title.
A KO win in the first 5 seconds of a fight or a KO win in the last 5 seconds of a fight?
Last 5 seconds.
Rich and famous or rich and unknown?
Rich and unknown. Hell yeah.
Travel to the moon or travel to the bottom of the ocean?
Oh hell, ocean for sure. I got so excited I said ocean. Definitely the ocean.
Pizza or burger?
Pizza.
And final question, superhero or supervillain?
Hero.
Love it.
Oh, yeah. I feel like I relate to the villains more, but I'm like a reformed villain turned hero.
I like it. The anti-hero.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, like Batman. Batman's troubled, but he's a hero.
Yeah. Well, it's been honestly an absolute pleasure talking to you. When can we see you back in the cage? Are there any plans at the moment?
So I just moved to Hawaii, so I'm kind of still getting settled in my new gym, a new job. And I kind of tweaked my knee a little bit, but it's not too bad. So I'm really hoping I can fight maybe in February or March. I would like to fight, kind of in the beginning of the year and get my career rolling again. I had to take a little break in between transition, but hopefully February or March. I'll put it out there. That would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be brilliant. Well, you've got fans in us, so we'll be supporting you from the UK when you're back in the cage.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me again.
You're really welcome. Have a great day, and yeah, hopefully speak to you soon.
Thank you. Have a great night, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right, I'm off to bed. See you later.
All right, good night.